In Guizhou, China, progress has a cost you can see from orbit. To build a highway through some of the world's harshest mountains, engineers have blasted, carved, and tunneled a corridor straight through rock, literally splitting mountains in half. The result is the Huaijiang Canyon Bridge, a human-made shortcut hanging 625 meters above a river gorge, smashing world records and rewriting what infrastructure can do. But beyond the headline, why did they risk so much to thread a superhighway through terrain that has trapped entire communities for centuries? The answers start where most roads end. Jagged ridgelines stretch across Guizhou, rising and falling like the spine of some ancient beast. The land is carved by forces older than memory. Limestone mountains folded and fractured, canyons so deep that sunlight struggles to reach the river below. Karst formations dominate this landscape, their sharp peaks and plunging gorges packed so tightly that villages perch on narrow shelves and entire valleys disappear into shadow. Here, the earth itself is a wall. Roads twist for hours just to cross a single ridge. In some places, a straight line on a map means nothing. The only way forward is up, then down, then up again. The Biaipan River has spent millennia slicing a slot through this stone, leaving sheer cliffs that drop hundreds of meters without warning. Every path is a compromise. Hug the cliffs and risk landslides, or disappear into tunnels that vanish beneath the mountains. For centuries, these barriers shaped life in Guizhou. Markets waited for days for goods to arrive. Children grew up without ever seeing the next valley. In the wet season, fog and rain turned the hills into islands, cutting off entire towns until the clouds lift. This is not just difficult terrain, it is a labyrinth built by geology and time where isolation is measured in stone. The scale defies expectation. In Guizhou, the mountains do not yield. They demand to be crossed or carved. On a winter morning, a delivery driver checks his watch as he waits for a break in the fog. The road ahead snakes along a cliff, barely wide enough for two trucks to pass. Each turn means another blind corner, another hour lost to the mountain. A shipment of vegetables bound for the city market sits in the back. If the produce arrives late, prices drop and the farmer's profit vanishes. If a landslide blocks the route, the entire load spoils. There is no shortcut, only patience and the risk of not making it at all. In Guizhou, every trip is a wager. School buses crawl along switchbacks, their wheels inches from the edge. Ambulances inch through rain and mist, knowing that a single delay could cost a life. For families, a visit to relatives in the next valley means waking before dawn and returning after dark. The cost is measured in time, fuel, and nerves worn thin by the threat of the next storm or rockfall. Logistics. Companies factor in delays as part of doing business. A missed delivery window can mean a lost contract. For small shops and markets, the impact is personal: empty shelves, canceled orders, and customers left waiting. The mountains do not care about schedules. Here, the price of distance is paid by everyone, every day. A siren blares and the mountain answers with thunder. Explosives packed into drilled holes rip through stone, sending a shockwave down the gorge. Chunks of limestone tumble, dust clouds billow, and for a moment, the air is thick with the taste of rock. This is how the corridor begins, not with gentle persuasion, but with force. The S-57 expressway demands a path where none exists, so workers carve it, meter by meter, straight through the heart of the ridge. Excavators crawl along the ledges, their arms reaching over empty space. Operators sit in metal cabs, swinging buckets against vertical faces, prying loose boulders that have not moved in centuries. Teams in helmets and harnesses wait at the edge, guiding the machines, signaling for another blast, another load to be hauled away. Every shift means a new wall to break, a new shelf to create. The geometry is precise. Slopes cut at calculated angles. Benches wide enough for trucks to pass, all while the cliff drops away into fog below. The debris, thousands of tons of shattered stone, must be cleared before the next phase can start. Dump trucks grind up temporary switchbacks, tires slipping on loose gravel. Each load means another trip down to staging yards built on narrow terraces where the stone is sorted, recycled, or sent away. There is no room for error, a missed signal, a loose rock, and the mountain takes back what has been claimed. Workers move along the cut faces, checking for cracks and loose shards, setting anchors into the fresh rock. Some stand on platforms bolted to the cliff, drilling holes for the next round of charges. Others guide steel mesh into place, locking the new slopes against the threat of landslides. The mountain is stubborn, but the work is relentless. By the end of each day, the corridor grows, one more scar in the stone, one step closer to a route that will not yield to the old rules of the landscape. Beneath the surface of the mountain, the real work unfolds out of sight. Tunnel boring crews arrive before dawn, their lights flickering in the mist as machines grind into limestone. Each tunnel must be driven with precision, angled to meet the new expressway alignment, wide enough for heavy trucks and stable enough to withstand the mountain's constant pressure. The process is relentless. Crews drill, blast, and haul away rubble in a cycle that repeats for months, sometimes years. Every meter gained underground is hard-won, measured in broken bits and spent drill heads. At the tunnel portals, the mountain opens like a wound. Concrete rings reinforce the entrances, holding back tons of fractured rock. These portals are more than just doorways for cars. They are lifelines for the entire project. Through them, equipment, materials, and workers move in and out, feeding the construction on both sides of the canyon. Without these passages, nothing reaches the heights where the bridge will one day hang. Temporary access roads snake up the slopes, clinging to the cliff faces. Built for machines, not comfort, these roads are carved just wide enough for a crane or a flatbed truck to squeeze by. Logistics coordinators chart every delivery, tracking the flow of steel, cable, and concrete up these precarious paths. A single misstep, a vehicle stuck, or a landslide triggered by rain, and the whole schedule stalls. On the ridge lines above the gorge, staging yards take shape on any scrap of level ground. Here, components are sorted and assembled, ready to be moved out to the edge. Workers, engineers, and drivers operate in tight choreography, each aware that the margin for error is razor thin. The mountain offers no forgiveness, yet piece by piece the infrastructure grows, a hidden network of tunnels and roads that makes the impossible bridge not just imaginable, but inevitable. A suspension bridge is a study in balance, weight, tension, and the raw force of gravity. Here, the Huajiang Canyon Bridge stretches 2,890 meters from end to end, linking two sheer ridges that once seemed untouchable. The main span alone reaches 1,420 meters, a single leap over the void that stands among the longest in the world. But the true headline is the distance to the river below, 625 meters of empty air, reported as the world's highest deck to gorge clearance. Two towers anchor the bridge to the mountain. On the north, a steel and concrete pillar rises 262 meters, taller than most skyscrapers. Across the canyon, the south tower stands 205 meters, both rooted deep into fractured limestone. These towers must hold not just the weight of the deck, but the shifting loads of wind, storms, and traffic, all magnified at this altitude. Suspended between them, the deck is more than a road. It is a truss structure 8 meters deep, designed to resist twisting and bending as it floats above the gorge. The truss acts as the backbone, giving the bridge the stiffness it needs to remain steady in the face of Guizhou's unpredictable weather. Massive cables, spun from thousands of steel wires, drape between the towers and anchorages, carrying the entire structure in tension. Every design choice, from span to tower height to truss depth, serves a single purpose: to cross a canyon that defies easy solutions. The result is an anatomy dictated by necessity, where each element answers a challenge set by the mountain itself. Wind sweeps through the canyon with a force that can lift equipment off its moorings. At 625 meters above the river, even a gentle breeze becomes dangerous. Safety crews stand by with anemometers, watching for gusts that cross the line, and work halts if the wind exceeds set limits. Suspended catwalks sway, cables hum, and every movement is measured against the risk of a sudden updraft. For weeks at a time, fog rolls in without warning. Visibility drops to a few meters and the world vanishes beyond the edge of the deck. Rain turns the rock slick and treacherous, forcing workers to retreat until the surface dries. Lightning storms sweep the gorge, grounding cranes and sending teams scrambling for shelter. The work window narrows to a few clear hours between storms, demanding precision and speed from every crew on site. Beneath their feet, the mountain is no safer. The towers must anchor into rock, riddled with cracks and hidden water channels. Drilling teams bore deep, searching for solid ground, then reinforce the shafts with high-strength concrete and rebar. Foundation pits are lined with steel mesh, ready to catch any fragments loosened by vibration or rain. Engineers monitor the mountain's mood with sensors, watching for shifts, settling, or the faintest sign of instability. At this height, every decision is double-checked, every anchor tested, every forecast read twice. The margin for error is measured in millimeters, and the cost of a misstep is unthinkable. Every day on the edge is a test of nerve, judgment, and respect for the forces that rule the canyon. Assembly on the Huajiang Canyon Bridge became a feat of precision rarely seen at this scale. Each deck segment, weighing over 200 tons, arrived prefabricated from distant plants, delivered not just to the canyon rim, but hoisted by cable cranes to hang in the sky. The work unfolded like choreography. Teams on catwalks guided segments into place, while operators relied on laser alignment systems to position every piece within a margin of millimeters. Suspended above a drop of 600 meters, workers tightened bolts and checked connections, their movements coordinated through radios and hand signals. The process left no room for improvisation. Every lift was tracked in real time, with live data feeds streaming from the site. Sensors watched for the slightest shift in cable tension or tower alignment, alerting engineers to adjust before a problem could grow. This constant monitoring balanced the forces of wind and gravity, ensuring each new segment fits seamlessly with the last. Prefabrication cut down on risk and wasted time. Instead of building from scratch on a narrow ledge, crews assembled the bridge as a series of giant modules, each one locked into place with pinpoint accuracy. Night or day, floodlights or fog, the sequence never broke. Lift, align, secure, repeat. The result was a structure that grew outward from each tower, meeting in the middle over the abyss. By the time the final segment slid into position, the bridge stood ready, every joint tested, every cable tuned, every sensor watching for what comes next. Construction on the Huajiang Canyon Bridge began in January 2022, and project managers were racing against the calendar and the canyon's weather. Crews worked in shifts around the clock, pouring foundations and raising the North Tower until it reached 199 meters in April 2023. Each milestone came quickly as the main suspension cables were spun across the gorge, drawing a silver line from ridge to ridge. By summer 2024, the upper transverse beams were locked into place, anchoring the superstructure against wind and rain. Prefabricated deck segments, each weighing over 200 tons, arrived on site and were hoisted into the sky, one after another, until the gap closed above the river. In August 2025, the bridge faced its final test, a week of load trials with sensors tracking every movement, every tremor. On September 28, 2025, the barriers dropped and traffic rolled across for the first time in the opening. 3 years and 8 months from groundbreaking to opening, the bridge's completion set a new standard for speed and scale in mountain engineering. The S-57 corridor, once a line on a map, now ran straight through the heart of the gorge. A bridge this high was never meant to be just a shortcut. From the start, planners imagined it as a destination, an attraction suspended between earth and sky. Media reports describe a glass walkway stretching out over the canyon, letting visitors stare straight down, 600 meters to the river below. There are plans for a glass elevator rising from the canyon floor to the deck, promising a view found nowhere else in China. The same reports mention a sky cafe near the clouds, and for the bold, bungee jumping and paragliding launches from the edge of the bridge. These features are reported, still waiting for their full debut, but the vision is clear. The goal is to turn an engineering marvel into a magnet for travelers and thrill seekers. Tour operators and local vendors are preparing for new crowds, ready to offer guided walks, souvenir stalls, and food stands on the rim. The hope is that every visitor drawn by the bridge's record-breaking height will linger for the view, the rush, and the stories. If the projections hold, these attractions could create hundreds of jobs, from guides and safety staff to cooks and drivers. The bridge stands not just as a passage, but as an invitation, a promise that the most remote corners of Guizhou can become the center of attention. Today, megastructures like the Huajiang Canyon Bridge don't just link cities, they redefine what is possible in the world's toughest landscapes. As China pushes infrastructure further, the line between obstacle and opportunity keeps shifting. In an era where speed and access shape destinies, the next leap may come from the very places we once thought impassable. What's your take? Progress, risk, or both? Let's talk below.